Need a reliable place to live in Mexico or any other place abroad? Well, this is the video for you, because today I'm going to give you some tips, tricks, and strategies for finding the ultimate rental, particularly here in Merida. So many problems that people deal with, the main problems typically deal with the house or the rental that they are in. So a lot of the stuff I probably looked at over a few hundred houses since I've been here in the last year, helping other people find a place, also looking for places for myself and all of that. So I've kind of seen it's pretty much every possible scenario that can possibly come up. I've seen it. And so again, if you follow these tips and tricks and strategies, you should be able to eliminate many of the issues and headaches that most other people deal with when they first arrive. So get a pencil, get a paper, and get ready to take these notes. Now, one of the topics are going to vary all over the place as it relates to this, and so I'm gonna hop around. So a lot of people ask about location. Where should they live? Should they live at the north side? Should they live outside the perimeter, inside the perimeter? So briefly, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the pros and cons. So there's a periférico, which, for lack of a better word, is like a perimeter. It is a perimeter around the city of Merida. Like in Atlanta, we have 285, and in Maryland, like the 495, the Beltway, is the loop around the city. Now, outside the perimeter or outside of the periférico, you generally in more, I guess, for lack of a better word, more rural areas. You don't have as much access to the shopping and some of the other things and the conveniences that you might be used to. Now, the benefit to that is, of course, costs tend to be significantly less outside of the perimeter. You can still find great deals inside the perimeter or inside the periférico, and again, you just gotta weigh the pros and cons. Outside the perimeter, it takes you much longer to get into, say, Central, or you may have to come into town to do shopping. That could be a plus or negative for you. I don't know. This is just something that you have to determine. Now, I personally live inside the periférico. I'm within the perimeter, but I'm also right near the edge. I'm right at the perimeter, so I can go on the outside pretty quickly, and I can also get back to the inside fairly quickly. So I'm inside far enough where, for me, where I am at now, I could be in, say, Central inside of 10 minutes. Now, I do live in the north. And when I say north, tend to be north of Central. And that's where a lot of other expats tend to live, in the north. Now, there are other areas inside that perimeter and outside the perimeter, such as the east, the west, and the south. Those areas tend to be much more affordable than what you would pay for, say, in the north. Beauty about the east and the west and the south, you can generally get a much significant larger house or bigger apartment, more space, more rooms for less than you would, say, in the more modern north. So those are just some factors. I personally prefer to live in the perimeter because I still have children. There's places they like to go. It's easy for them to hop Uber. The rides are much more affordable in the perimeter to get to these local areas that's close by. They can go to the mall. If we lived outside the perimeter, it's going to cost me far more money in terms of transportation, rides or Uber, more gas if I had a car, more time having to drive from there to take them there or here or there, whatnot. So really preference. Normally in the U.S., I've always tended to live in rural areas and further out the perimeter, like 45 minutes outside of Atlanta. I didn't want to be with all of that. But those cities were more self-contained, and those rural areas had all my grocery shopping and all of that there. But if I wanted to go to the mall, I had to leave Cartersville and go further into the city to get to the malls and get to skating rinks and bowling alleys and all of that stuff. So you got to factor that in. So for me, accessibility is more important to you. I'll probably say living within the perimeter is where you want to go. Where can you find houses at? So there are quite a few websites, classified ads websites online. One of my favorites, of course, prior to getting banned from Facebook, was a smart Facebook marketplace. You could generally find properties there, reach out to the owner or the agent and inquire about the property. You can see pictures, etc., etc. If I can't think of the names of the other site that I use, but I'll try and link to them in the description below this video, because I can't pronounce it, the words, and if I try to pronounce it, you wouldn't know what I'm saying and you'll spell it wrong and all of that. So I'll try and put that in the description, a couple of links to some of the resources that I use to find rentals. Now, what generally happens is when you reach out to somebody, many times an agent will respond back to you that is representing that property. If you end up not getting that particular house, typically that same agent will offer to find other properties for you based on your needs. So that is a good way to get the ball rolling, is reach out to some of these listings, and if the property don't work out, then seek their help to find other stuff for you. The only issue that you deal with a lot of these agents, many of them work another job and this is not their primary job, and so many times you won't hear from them until the next day, like at 6 p.m. or sometimes they don't respond back for 3 days, and that's the issue that you're dealing with, the culture. And again, a lot of these folks work and they may not get off work till 6, 7 o'clock, and you in many cases that house might be gone by the time they respond back to you. That house is gone just that quick, because a lot of these properties move fast. So that's the downside to working with some of the agents that you come across on these different platforms. So that's the thing. In my course, I kind of go more in detail of what to write out when you reach out to these folks initially. And I've discussed this in some other videos on what to say. Try and minimize your speech to keep from being identified as a foreigner. Talk less, speak less, use as little words as possible until you find out the price of the rental. Then you can start talking more using Translate app, because they know when you're using the Translate app, it's not the native tongue and the language is all jacked up, and they know you're a foreigner. So that's just something to be cognizant of. One of the other favorite ways I like to find houses, of course, y'all hear me talk about this, is after doing my research and identifying the best neighborhood or the best colonia I want to stay in, I'll go to that colonia and I'll find the busiest street in that particular colonia. When I say busiest street, not in terms of busyness in terms of traffic and cars, but busy in the aspect that where the grocery stores are at, the market, to go buy fresh fruits and vegetables, activities, doctor's offices, dental offices, etc., etc. So I try and find those main roads where all of the restaurants are on and all of that, and then I will look for the side roads that are immediately next to those amenities. And the reason I do that is because I want to be within walking distance of these places. I can walk out my house, walk down 2 or 3 streets over, and I'm at the market, I'm at the doctor's office, I'm at the restaurant, I'm at whatever I'm trying to go do, I'm at the bus stop, I'm at all of that. So that's what I tend to do. And then I'll walk those neighborhoods, or if I'm in a rental car, I'll ride up those streets looking for rent signs or rental signs, etc., etc. And then from there, of course, I'll reach out to the owners via WhatsApp. Now, one thing to be conscious of, never ever text these people directly from your phone. Very few people here text. They use WhatsApp for everything. So make sure you download that app and do all your communication from within WhatsApp. When you send them a message via text, they know you're a foreigner. They know you're not from here. So don't text to anybody. Do it all from within the WhatsApp app. And again, use as few words as possible in Spanish to until you're able to get that price from that person. So I'll use Facebook Marketplace. I'll go to the house, go to the area, check it out. If it's not ideal, I'll ride around that immediate area as well, going up and down the streets, making sure everything is conveniently accessible to me. The reason why accessibility is so important, because for many of you that are coming, you may or may not have a car. The vast majority tend not to have a car when they arrive. So being able to walk to the market, walk to the grocery store, walk to the restaurant, walk to the doctor, walk to the mall, makes your expenses much less, because you're not having to take Uber to every single place. And so, for example, I will walk to the market and I may take Uber back if I have a lot of stuff, if I bought a lot of stuff. I tend not to buy a lot of stuff at one time, so I'll walk to the market and walk back with a bag with fruits and vegetables and a little bit of meat. And I don't have to take Uber. We also live directly a little 4 or 5 minute walk from my front door to the mall. We can walk to the mall, do whatever we want in the mall, etc., etc. It doesn't cost. The grocery store is in that same mall, so rarely ever do we have to hop an Uber. Now, there's the Shadrawi, about 15-minute walk from my front door to there. Oftentimes we'll walk there, buy our stuff, and hop an Uber back. But the Uber ride is only 30 pesos, which is about $1.50 US. So affordable because it was very, very close. So those are just some things to be mindful of. Now we're gonna get into things to look for when you're looking at a house. So for example, making sure I got these notes. For example, so when you're looking at a house, it's always the little stuff that gets you. I talked about in my last video how somebody got a house and there was no air conditionings in the bedrooms. So that's one thing you want to look for. Many other houses, most houses here, don't have central air. So they have air conditioning units in each of the bedrooms. So if being cool and comfortable at night is very important to you, make sure you check to see if there's air conditioning in that room. Now, the house that I'm currently in, there is no air conditioning in the living room. Whereas in the other house that I had, that I was renting, there was air conditioning. When I rented this house, it was during the cooler months, and it was very comfortable in the middle of the day when I went into the house, and so I felt we could ride it out. We'll be fine with our AC. We can open our windows. But of course, that was in the winter months. Now coming in March, April, May, June, when it's much more hotter, now I realize that wasn't a smart move. So, but we've been fine. We've been able to tolerate it with the windows being open and getting some fans that blow on us. So it got us through. We survived. Now I know we can make it if we were to find a place without air conditioning. Many, particularly in the living room, is what I'm talking about. Many of the houses here do not have air conditioning in the living room. That's just standard. A lot of places don't. So if that's important to you, make sure you're looking for that. Oftentimes, the owners will allow you to install air conditioning in the living room, but it's going to be on your dime. You want to pay for it. Now, you can ask if the owner will put it in for you if you sign a 1 or 2 year lease. Sometimes they won't. Most times they probably say no, but sometimes they may. So that's the benefit of simply asking. Everything is negotiable. I've learned that when you're dealing with these agents, they will tell you that that can't be done or that's not negotiable, that this is the way it is. But if somehow you can get in front of the owner and ask and talk to the owner directly, you can ask for these things, and you'll generally find that many of these owners are very reasonable, and they are willing to bend a little bit to accommodate and get you into the place. So always ask, even if the agent is telling you no, you can't do that, because they will tell you that. They will tell you that this is the way things are done. This is the way we do it here. Get in front of that owner and ask for all of that. So again, make sure AC units are in the rooms that are important to you. It's very common to have air conditioning. If you have it in the living room, there won't be an air conditioning unit in the dining room. And that's okay, because most of the time, depending on the size of the space, the unit that's in the living room or the unit that's in the dining room is generally enough to keep the entire area, both the dining room and the living room, very cool and comfortable. So you don't need units in both the dining room and the living room. So just to be conscious of that. Nor in the kitchen. Now some places might have AC unit in the kitchen, but most places typically do not. So that's just something to be mindful of. But mainly make sure your bedrooms are covered. Also, when you are in these houses, many times the electricity is on in most cases. Turn the units on in each of those bedrooms to make sure they're working. That's just something you want to check. The last thing you want to do is move in and it ain't working. And if it ain't working, typically again, let the owner know and they will generally get it taken care of for you and fixed. Which leads to my next thing I want to emphasize. A lot of times when you go into these rentals, they will not necessarily they won't be cleaned. They'll be dirty. They may be, sometimes the place might have been vacant for 6 months or even a year, and they're very dirty. For whatever reason here, the landlords tend not to clean the place up for presentation. They generally wait until they got a contract on the place and get the deposits, then they clean it up. So when you go look at some of these places, already having your mindset that what you're seeing is dirty or not necessarily totally clean. You might see bugs that are dead and upside down, roaches, ants. You will see that in many of these places. Don't let that frighten you too bad. You always ask, how long has the place been vacant? Now, if the place has only been vacant for a week and you see all these roaches, probably want to stay away. You get what I'm saying? But if it's been vacant for 6 months and you see a couple of dead roaches, that's not bad. And many times they will keep the windows open, and oftentimes there's spaces underneath all the doors, gaps underneath the doors. So while the place has been vacant for 3 months or 6 months, bugs will crawl in and take up space. So don't necessarily look at that as a bad thing. Just be mindful, look past the dirtiness, look past the clutter, and just focus on what the place will look like when it's clean. I generally find that when you do sign the contract or the lease for the place, when they clean it up and get it ready for you, the place 99% of the time is in tip-top condition, is spotless. They use those monies to get the place cleaned up. They'll do whatever yard work is necessary on the outside to clean everything up. All of that, you're gonna be covered. So don't judge the place based on what you see. That's gonna be the norm in many of the places that you go to. Also, another thing to look for is appliances. So a lot of rentals where the place is unfurnished may or may not have appliances, or they may have some appliances. They may have a refrigerator but no stove. They may have a stove but no refrigerator. They may not have a refrigerator nor a stove. You generally got to buy it all. So that's something to be conscious of. Now the benefit, I'm gonna kind of hop around. Unfurnished places tend to be much cheaper in the monthly rent. So versus a place that's furnished. So a place might be furnished, you might pay quite a bit more for that furnished place, which may or may not still have all the appliances. The place may be completely furnished, but it still may be missing a refrigerator, maybe missing a stove. If the place is what you want, don't let it go because it's missing a stove or a refrigerator. It's cheap to buy one on, used one on, say, Facebook Marketplace. You can find some great deals there. So don't let a place go because it doesn't have one of the two appliances or both. The last house I was at, and I missed it. I didn't pay attention to it. Chalk it up to being a dude who just didn't pay attention. The first house didn't have a refrigerator. It had a stove and an oven, but no refrigerator. So I had to find a refrigerator. Found one on Facebook Marketplace. It clunked out, but then I had somebody come repair it for like $15-20 US. And made it like it was brand spanking new. I still got it. I brought it with me to the new place. I have 2 refrigerators in this house because this place already did come with appliances. The thing about the stove, a lot of homes, again, these are little nuances you might just not notice. So some of the homes may have a stove, but it's a stove top, but there's no oven. So they just have burners on top of the counter built in, but there's no oven, so you're unable to bake. So if baking is an issue or concern of yours, then you might want to get an oven. And if you do decide to buy an oven, make sure there's space for the oven. Now, the other thing about ovens here is because of the heat. Merida is a very hot place. Because of the heat, a lot of these houses don't use ovens because it makes the house even hotter. Both places that I've been in, we've had ovens. I got an oven here. I like to use my oven. So an oven for me is essential. I like to cook. It does get, because I don't have air conditioning in this room, in the dining room or living room, it does get hotter when we crank that oven up. So it's a catch-22. That's even with the windows open. So again, just be mindful of these things. That air conditioning helps out a lot when you turning that stove and oven on. Also, remember, you can negotiate. If the place has the stove or refrigerator or is missing one, again, ask the owner if he'll provide it. Typically, when I go in, many times you have to pay all these deposits to move in. If the place doesn't have appliances or something is missing, I will use that to my advantage and say, hey, you don't got a stove, you don't got a refrigerator, I gotta buy that. And you're asking for all these deposits. Can I split the deposits into 2? Can I pay half of the deposits? So can I pay one deposit this month and add the other deposit on next month with the next month rent? Because I need to go buy this stuff. Often than not, more times than most, they always told me, yeah, we can do that. Again, dealing directly with the owner, asking the owner these questions will go a long way. Don't ever assume, don't ever take the agent word for it. Ask the owner or force the agent to ask the owner. Tell them you want to see the response. You want to hear the owner. You want to know if the owner's been contacted. So this little thing like that. Also, a lot of complaints that you typically hear about when people are renting a house is the water pressure. The water pressure is horrible. So as you're going through these houses and you're looking at property, turn the water faucets on in the kitchen, in the bathroom, flush the toilets, see how the water pressure, what it's like. Turn the showers on. That's a very important one. If you like taking a hot shower with the water coming down on you, turn it on. Because a lot of people are moving into these houses only to find out that the water pressure sucks after they done moved in and after they done signed the contract and lease and pay their deposits. So turn that stuff on and check it out. Now there are some workarounds and you can get some of these issues resolved, but it's gonna cost you out of pocket. So try and figure these things out before you sign that lease and get yourself into a 1-year contract in a place that you're not satisfied with. Also check out the size of the water heater. Some places come with these very tiny water heaters, which means the water ain't gonna be hot. You'll be taking cold showers often, or the hot water gonna run out quick. So that's just something to be conscious of when you're looking at these houses. The first house I got, and that hot water be gone after 5 minutes. Crazy. You know what I mean? So if you don't want to take cold showers, think about that in the back of your mind. Turn that hot water on while you're there. See if it's working. If it's not working, let the real estate agent know so they can go flip a switch, get that hot water heater running, because oftentimes they will turn a hot water heater off to preserve gas and electricity. But have them hit the switch on while you're looking at the rest of the house, and then come back, test the hot water just to make sure it's working. Another thing you want to look for is, because again, we are in a hot area, so airflow is very important. Open up the windows, open up the doors to see what the airflow is like. Now, depending on the axis or the position your house sits in, it will maximize airflow. If that's something that's very important for you, make sure to inquire about that. But while you're in the house, open up the windows, see what the drafts are like coming through, to see if that'll help keep the house cooled down. Also, make sure you got ceiling fans in each of the rooms. It helps. They're not the greatest, but anything helps. I tend to find that the fans that you put on the floor and face at you, that rotate or oscillate, those generally make you much more comfortable. Also, when I'm walking around and going to other people's houses, I see most of these folks, everybody have fans in the rooms on the floor pointing at them, or have fans in the rooms while they're in the bed, because that bill can get high if you're running your air conditioning all the time. Which leads to my next point. There is something called DAC, where essentially you get penalized for consuming and using too much electricity. So for example, let's say, I'm just throwing random numbers out for easy math. Let's say you pay $1 per kilowatt of electricity use, consumption. Let's say it's $1 per kilowatt. If you are considered a high consumer, everything is broken down in tiers or different levels. If you are considered a high consumer, instead of paying $1 per kilowatt, you might pay $3 per kilowatt. So in other words, if an average person bill is say $150, let's say $100 a month to use the electricity, because you're in a higher tier, instead of paying $100 a month, now you're paying 3 times more. You're now paying $300 a month for the same consumption use that somebody else might use. But because you're not higher tier level, you're gonna pay more. So always, when you are dealing with looking at considering using a rental, ask the owner, can you see the previous bills? Because it will list on the bill if they are in DAC. It takes about a year to get out of that status. You have to prove that you don't consume as much energy or electricity. So it'll take almost a full year for that proof to occur. Say, okay, this person does not use that much electricity, so at the end of the year, we're gonna bring their rates back down to maybe a tier 1 level. But because the person who rented that property before you was a high consumer user, you're going to suffer the penalty of that. You can deal with the consequences of that previous tenant. So that's why it's important for you to ask, to look at the previous electric bill for the last couple of months. That will let you know what level their tier they're in, and also gives you an idea of what the average bills will be, because that will hit your pocket. And depending on where you live in, I mean, here you pay your bill every 2 months. So just for an example, my bill, because we do run our air conditioning quite often, the ones that are in the bedrooms, keep them on at night. Our bill runs about $300 US per month. And I'm sorry, not per month, for every 2 months. So every 2 months we get the bill. My bill is about $325 a month. Now, if I'm in that tier 3 level, that same bill would now be $900 US per month. And so that's something you want to be conscious of. You don't want to be in that tier level where you're just paying extra just because somebody else did it. So this is why I do what I do, and not why I charge what I charge. These are little things that we're looking out for on your behalf. That's just so much. And before I continue on with the rest of these tips, I got a whole lot more. If you find this content helpful and useful, please consider making a donation. My CashApp is on the screen, $CartessRoss. Zelle, my email address, cartess@cartessross.com. There's a credit card payment option. Go to the website, moveabroadandthrive.com. hit the donate link at the top and just put in whatever you like to donate. So let's get back at it. So we already talked about ceiling fans. Another issue, a lot of places, not a lot, but many places will have white floors. And so it can get kind of dusty here in Merida. And particularly when you're walking outside with your shoes. And for us, we generally have to bring our bikes inside and park them in the house because I don't have a gate outside my house or anything like that. So we bring in a lot of dirt. White floors tend to drive the spouse crazy, get angry. Take y'all shoes off. I'm constantly having to sweep and mop these floors 3 times a day. Blah, 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 blah. So if white floors is a nuisance for you, that's something to be careful of, be mindful of when you're looking at the place, because it can drive your spouse crazy, or it may drive you crazy, and it makes everybody crazy. You know what I mean? So look for those white floors if that's something that bothers you, because it will require constant cleanup. No denying that there. Also, while open windows help with airflow, be mindful of how many windows are in the house. Like my first house, we had these floor to ceiling windows, sliding doors that expand the length of the house. And we had them in all the rooms. There's somebody coming, I think he coming to the wrong door. Okay. So there was a lot of, with the downside to that was there was a lot of sunlight coming into the house, and it kept the house super, super hot, and which in turn caused for a larger electric bill. And we paid a lot of money for electricity in that other house. So that's something to be mindful of, figuring out what time of day the sun. So in the morning time, I normally worked in the kitchen downstairs. And so from about 8 a.m. to about 12 noon, that sunlight would beat down and come through my kitchen. It would just wear me out. It was just unbearable. So just be mindful of that. We ended up getting a Maya Sombra, which is that covering that helped reduce a lot of the sunlight from coming into the house, and it also made swimming outside much more pleasant because the sunlight is not coming directly on us. Also, at the end of the day, when the sun went to the other side of the house and came in through the bedrooms upstairs, it was unbearably hot upstairs in those rooms. So be mindful of that. The house that I have now has a big long driveway, covered driveway. So it blocked the sun from coming directly into this house. And even upstairs, there's not sunlight the way the house is positioned, not directly coming into the rooms. So that is a godsend. So ideally when you go view these houses, try and go in the middle of the day when it's really hot, so you can get an idea of what the comfort level or discomfort level will be in that house. That's something you always want to be mindful of. Also, when it rains, that's another good day to go look at these houses, because if the house had leaks, you're going to be able to identify that and see that. If there's flooding that comes up through the door and through the front door, that's something you will be able to see on a rainy day. If you go to some houses and you notice big steps that lead to the front door, that's generally a possible sign that there's a lot of flooding in that area, and that could possibly be an issue for you. So again, these are minor nuances to look out for when you're out looking for a house. So again, just be mindful of the windows due to the excessive amount of sunlight coming into the house. Also, when you're looking at a house, if bugs and critters are something that annoys you and drive you crazy, you may not necessarily want to live in a house that had a lot of grass in the back, or a lot of grass in the front, or where you're just surrounded by trees, weeds, and grass. That tends to bring more bugs into the home. My first house, we lived behind the house was a bunch of weeds and grass and trees and shrubberies, which explained why we had a lot of bugs coming in the house. Even had rat issues toward the end, coming into the pool, coming through the little brick wall that we had, coming into the house. Bugs, scorpions, spiders, roaches, all of that. The place that we live in now, I have no grass and no bugs. Very few bugs that I have here. Very few. And I haven't had to use a fumigator. I think I've used them. I don't think we needed a fumigator since we've been here. The other place, the fumigation guy came every month. I paid them to come every month, not every other month, to keep the rodents and the bugs and the critters out of my house. Here, I hadn't had to do that at all because of where I'm living at. So just be mindful. There's a lot of grass and trees. Expect to see more bugs and mosquitoes in your home. Also, most houses that you run into here in Merida will have gaps under the door. It could be a tiny gap. It could be big gaps. You will see that in most of the houses. There are lots of. So the exterior door that coming into the outside, the door you might have in the back, gaps, which unfortunately allows bugs to come into your house. Even those little geckos will fit under those doors and slip into your house. So just know that going in. There are different things that you can buy like at Home Depot or the hardware store that will cover up the gap and reduce the amount of bugs or critters coming into your house significantly. Ironically, I haven't put anything down on my door yet. I bought something to do it, but unfortunately I haven't had much of an issue. Every now and again, a little bug or a gecko will get in, but I just hadn't done it. But at the first place, I did it 100%. So the thing cost like $1.50, less than $2. I can't remember exactly, to put the thing under your door to keep the bugs from coming in. It helps significantly. So that's just something to be mindful of. Also, the windows, many of the houses will have these window panes or like little rectangularly shaped window panels. You kind of roll this thing up and it opens up like 8 of them. 8 of them are opened up to let the air flow in. So in many cases, they don't have screens. So when you open the windows, bugs can come in, mosquitoes can come in, geckos can come in, etc., etc. So it's easy to get those screened in. And again, ask the homeowner if he will put screens on the window. He may not. Most of the time when we ask, he put the screen, they screen the window. Many times the houses that have those type of window panels will already be screened in. Many won't. So again, just be conscious of that. Don't let it be a deal breaker for you if that's the case. Now also another thing to be mindful of is if you're going to have your windows open all the time, beware of the noise pollution. These roads can get kind of loud. You have trucks passing by, cars driving by, and then when people walk by, then the dogs in the neighborhood start barking. So you're hearing all of this noise. So if that's an issue for you, just be mindful that keeping your window open on a regular basis might not be something you want to do, which means you will tend to run your air conditioning more. If you don't mind the noise, then leave the windows open and you'll be fine. I made the comment because we have some dogs down the street. Every time somebody walk by, they get the can on. In the beginning, I was like, man, I was up with these dogs. I got to live with these dogs. I was just telling my daughter this morning, I said, you know what? I hadn't noticed them dogs barking in the last 2 weeks. Are them dogs still here? And she's like, yeah, Daddy, they bark every day. They here. They ain't going nowhere. But that goes to show that as time has gone by, I've gotten immune to hearing them dogs. They don't bother me. They don't bother me at all. Now, Kim will get upset when the dog be barking and get annoyed. You know, we got our windows open because, like I said, I don't have air conditioning in this downstairs living room. So The dogs are barking. It drives her crazy. I'm sitting here watching movies all day, and I don't hear nothing. I'm sitting at the kitchen table behind me on my computer working. I don't hear nothing. They don't bother me. In fact, I don't know that I can ever go back to living in a house that's completely quiet, or living in a neighborhood where it's completely quiet. I done got used to this noise. It's almost like it's gonna sound crazy, but like it relaxes me. I think if I move back home to the States and didn't hear nothing, I'd go crazy. There's always something going on. There's a guy riding on a bicycle on a loudspeaker announcing what he's selling. There's a guy riding down on a bicycle, tricycle, saying, hey, I can come clean up your driveway, you get your weeds cut, clipped and chopped up, wash your house down, pressure wash. There's always something. Somebody coming down selling ice cream, fruits, vegetables, juices. Oh, that's the fun and the excitement about this place. You know what I'm saying? So it's a beautiful thing. It really is. So let me get back on track. So I just want to make you aware of that. So if you are in a very high traffic area, you can expect to hear a lot more noise, which is why I said earlier, I'll find the areas that's busy and I'll go 2 or 3 or 4 streets back from that main road into those streets to look for houses back there. And so that way I can walk from there to the main road without necessarily being on the main road, if that makes sense. So gaps in the door, open window panes, get screens. And again, getting screens on these windows is very, very affordable. If you can't do it, you can generally get a handyman who will do it for a very affordable price. And like I say, many of these folk that walk up and down the street, you can flag them down and they'll come and fix and repair or hang up whatever you want for a very reasonable price. Also, another thing that you need to be mindful of, some of these houses that you look at, particularly the larger houses where there's nothing but just concrete all around the front, all around the side, all around the back, all the way around the side, just concrete all over the house. Now, depending on the color of the concrete, how much concrete it is and what's next to you and what your house is made out of, how the color, it can bring in a lot more heat. And that sunlight, when that sun hits that concrete absorbs that heat. So even at nighttime at 9, 10, 11 o'clock, that concrete is still holding that heat and then releasing it, and it's still going to be hot at night. So that's something to be mindful of and be aware of when you're looking for a home, is the amount of concrete. Now, I did mention earlier that a lot of grass can be an issue as it relates to bugs, so you got to kind of balance it out. Again, these are just things I'm telling you to be aware of and conscious of. Cabinets. Many of the houses that you go into will not have a lot of cabinet space. We have primarily shelves on our wall. You see that little tiny shelf there, and let me see if you can see. And you see that shelf right there. That's what we got. Now, behind this bar, there are some shelves underneath that, open shelving. No cabinets, just open shelving. Now, under the kitchen sink, there are 3 cabinets that we do put pots and pans in. But most places won't have cabinets. Well, I'm not gonna say most. I would say many places will not have cabinets. And many places will not have cabinets. So, and part of that has to do with the fact that we are in a tropical area. There's a lot of humidity, and you can tend to get mold buildup down in those cabinets, particularly when you're washing pots and pans and you put them up under that cabinet damp. What they're going to do, create more humidity and more dampness in that area, so which causes more problems than it's worth. So that's why you see a lot of open space in many of the homes that you go into. Nothing to fret about. Many times, if cabinets are a necessity, the owners will allow you to out of your pocket. If you want to have some cabinets hung up, you can. You can do the simplicity thing that we have done here and just have somebody come hang shelves up. That's going to be significantly much cheaper than having cabinets built in. And it's going to keep everything open. Like I say, it's not that this is a bad thing, it's just a different way that they do things here. So if you go into a house and there's not enough shelving, just keep in mind you can add the shelving. Just let the owner know that you want to put some more, get permission, and for the most part they don't have a problem. As long as the house has been better, upgraded, they're not going to have any issues with it. So we've gotten used to this open shelving space since we've been here. And I get it. It's humidity. The last thing you want is mold. Also, when you close up bags of food, like you open up a pack of spaghetti, a pack of rice, and you don't close it all the way, and you put it in them cabinets and shelves, these little bugs get into it and the food becomes no good and all of that. So I understand the open space now that I'm here. So again, just something to be mindful of. I have to see the previous bill. We talked about that. We talked about water pressure, stairs or no stairs. I think in my next place, if I can find it, I'm gonna try and get a place that don't have stairs. I get tired of going up and down them stairs. They seem like a great idea when I first got here. I hate them stairs. Or at least if I find a house, I'll try and get one where the master is downstairs on the main level and let them kids climb them stairs. So that's just another thing to be conscious of. If you're looking at apartments, many apartments will tend to have stairs you climb and won't have an elevator for you to go up. So that's just something to be conscious of. That's just something to be conscious of as well. When I'm sorry, something kept popping up on my screen. I thought I put it in airplane mode so I wouldn't be distracted. But be conscious of that because they get old real quick. And a lot of these stairs may or may not have railing on the side that you can hold to support you as you're going down the stairs, especially late at night. You don't have that extra rail to support you. You fall down the stairs. I fell down the stairs in my other house. There was no railing. I stumbled out the room, fell off the edge of the stairs, and boom. And them floors of concrete. You know what I'm saying? There ain't no carpet up in this camp. Ain't nothing breaking your fall. You know, so just something to be conscious of if there is an issue for you. Townhouse versus a house. So in my last house, we were in the townhouse. Our neighbor tended to play movies with his surround sound system, and so we heard the boom, boom, boom through the walls. Many times they would be gone during the day, and their dog, tiny little dog, would just bark, rah, 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 rah. And that dog annoyed me. Maybe because of the little dog bark annoyed me, and just constantly hearing that barking all day. So, house versus townhouse. When you're living up beside folks, you don't know what you got until you get there. So again, just something to be conscious of. If you are a person who like watching your TV loud and blasting it, a house may be more suitable or ideal for you. If you're a late night person and you like to crank it up, a house might give you a little bit more flexibility than say an apartment or a townhouse. Fortunately, the house that we're in now is sort of like a townhouse, but it's only two that are attached. The same lady owns both units. She lives in a house, an unattached house that's next to us, but she owns these two houses right here. Fortunately, they had built this well and don't hear a thing out of that other house. Don't hear nothing. So, just again, there's more tips to be conscious of. Internet. Now, some people will tell you that internet is more stable in the north. They'll say the internet is not stable outside of the peripheral or outside the perimeter. Some folks will tell you the internet is not good in the south or the east or the west. etc. They're not as strong or stable in Central. So many times, well, not many, but in many cases, when you go look at some of these houses, they will already have electricity on and the internet's already on. Test it out while you're there. Get on the Wi-Fi network, see what the speed is like, if it's fast enough, if it's slow enough. Also find out from them who is the internet service provider. I've been using Total Play at both places that I'm currently been living in, and I've been totally satisfied with Total Play. Now there's other services like Ivy, Telcel, and some other ones, but I will tell you this, everybody have complaints about all of the internet services. So there's going to be people that tell you Total Play absolutely suck. There's going to be people that tell you Ivy absolutely suck. Telcel's internet service absolutely suck. Everybody going to tell you that. And you just have to find out for yourself. Because when you look at the reviews, all of them are negative, for all of them. So, but Total Play has worked extremely well for us in both houses. The house that we're in now, we have fiber optic speed, and it works wonderfully. Love it. So if you are able to test the internet out there, check it out. Get the address that you are in, and when you go back home to dig a little deeper, have somebody call, say, the top 3 internet service providers and ask them if they provide service in that area. Again, I've been happy with Total Play. That's the only service I've used. And if I move into the next place, I'm gonna be using Total Play there. I haven't had any problems. So, but again, you can test the internet. Some places include the internet with the bill, with the rent. Fortunately, here at this place, my fiber optic speeds, internet is included in my rent. So I don't have to pay any extra for that. Check airflow. One of the benefits of living in Mexico is a lot of the use of hammocks. You know, the hammocks that you lay in and swing back and forth. Many of the houses will have hooks on the wall for you to use hammocks. I'd encourage you to get some hammocks because the level of comfort in these things are amazing. Look online how to use them, because I've always thought you had to lay in them things lengthwise. I didn't know you can lay in them sideways, and very comfortable. I read my books in them. The airflow around you in those hammocks are very plentiful, so it keeps you very cool. A lot of families here don't have beds. They sleep in the hammocks. And that's what they do. And so I found that the hammocks here have been very comfortable. I love it. I'm like, I don't know how I lived it long and not been using hammocks. I use them all the time. Very comfortable. So look for those hammock hooks. If they don't have them, generally you can have somebody come hang them up, like $20. Put them into the concrete walls and all of that stuff for you, and get it all set up for you. That's just something extra. We already talked about walk at night. So if you found a place that you like and everything looked good, my advice is to come back at nighttime, see what it's like. Also, depending on the time of day that you saw it, go back in the middle of the day to see what it's like at, say, 12 o'clock noon time, to see what the heat is like, if it's bearable. But walk at night, walk down the street, because at nighttime when you walk through, you're gonna find out real quick if there's a lot of dogs on that street. And as you walk through, they're gonna get to carrying on. So if that's something that you can't deal with, it's better to know that right up front. Walk that street. And it's just a good idea to see what it's like at night anyway. Are there a lot of people hanging out in the streets? Are they partying out there on the streets? Little things like that. So go back at night, see what it's like. If you have to be somewhere, if time is an issue, you have to be somewhere at a certain time, or if a normal drive takes 10 minutes to get from point A to point B, normally 10 minutes, then go back to your house at 5 o'clock in the afternoon Typically, that's the time traffic is higher. See how long it takes you to get to that place that normally takes 10 minutes. See how long it takes you to get there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to that destination. If it takes you 30 minutes, something you might want to reconsider if time is of essence. For example, when my daughter was going to dance 6 days a week, it was very important that we live close by the school. Living somewhere that add an extra 20 minutes to the drive time due to the time of day that she had class at 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. would cause us to spend more money on Uber, would cost more time in the ride, and just more of an inconvenience. So it was more advantageous for it to be closer to the school so we can get there quickly regardless of the time of day. So again, these are just little things to be mindful of. We already talked about the cabinets. Solar. So, depending on how much electricity you use, your bill can be high. It can be low. If you're fortunate enough to find a house that has solar on top, you can save a significant amount of money on your electricity. So, I haven't been able to routinely come across homes that were for rent that had solar. Some of them did, but you have to really, really look hard, and it's very scarce. But they are places that have it. If that's a necessity or requirement, I probably wouldn't make that a requirement, because it's going to be the properties are going to be very limited of what's available to you if you're saying I must have solar. Maintenance. So when you're renting a house, typically the owners are going to have when you sign your lease, they're going to have some stuff in the contract that basically says what you're responsible for. For the most part, these owners will fix anything that needs fixing as it relates to the house. So for example, if the air conditioning tears up, they will generally fix that, but they will require you to maintain the maintenance on the air conditioning unit. So every 6 months, somebody will have to come through, clean all the units out, and that's part of the maintenance that you will typically have to pay for. It's very affordable, it's not expensive, and it happens every 6 months. One, it helps you keep your bill down because it's making sure the unit is efficient and it's cleaned out. So that's something you want to do anyway. If there's a ceiling leak, of course, then what happens is that's generally something that the owner will fix. Now, if you go in there tearing up the toilets and messing up the plumbing system, you're going to pay for that. But typically, as a rule of thumb, anything that requires, if the stove breaks down and the stove came with the house, usually that's something the owner may take care of, assuming that you didn't tear it up. So read the contract very carefully to find out what you're responsible for. And when you first move into a house, make sure during the first 30 days or 2 weeks, depending on what the contract say, go through the house, take pictures of everything that you find, cracks in the wall, cracks, holes on the floor, broken windows or whatever, and document all of that stuff to help ensure that you're not paying for that when your lease is up, so that you can get much of your deposit back. Open windows, pools. So pool. The first house I had a pool, mainly more of a dipping pool. I wasn't satisfied with it because it was small. So plus when we first got there, everybody was in the pool on the regular. After a few months, like going to the beach, you're no longer interested. Nobody was getting in the pool. So the second house that I moved into, I was like, you know what, a pool ain't gonna be a factor in my decision. So now I regret that. Even though we didn't get in that pool as often as we did the first time, having the option to get in the pool is a better benefit to have, in my opinion. I regret not having a pool now, because we've had some hot days and I would have loved to have gotten in that pool bring that body temperature down, and to stay cool, particularly since I don't have air conditioning in this room, because you can go get in that pool and it brings your temperature down, your inner body core temperature is lower, and you're much more comfortable for up to a couple of hours after you get out of that pool. So that would have been advantageous for us here, since we don't have AC in the living room. Now, the next place that I look for, I definitely want a pool, or would do everything I can to get a pool. A pool may or may not be important to you, I don't know, but that's something to look for. It's not really going to drive your cost up significantly. It's you still find a nice home with a nice pool for very affordable pricing. So if a pool, only you can decide if a pool is right for you or not. I think I pretty much covered it, everything. So those are my tips for ensuring that you have less problems after moving into your new home. If you follow these tips and strategies here, a lot of this stuff can be prevented beforehand, is by doing some of the work on the front end and asking questions. Remember, everything is negotiable. Always try and get them to talk to the owner or get the owner on the phone. Ask them to get the owner on the phone. If you need somebody to go with you to translate on your behalf, find somebody who can translate on your behalf and go. I don't have any issues using Translate app when I'm there. Well, because right now I already got the price. I got the information that I needed. I don't care if they know I don't speak Spanish at that point. But if you feel more comfortable going with someone who speaks the language, you can find a translator that's pretty affordable to go and accompany you on these trips. And again, if you need help with this, I'm happy to help. It costs. We're not cheap, and more than glad to help you. If you'd like to book a telephone consultation, call me. We can talk about that as well. Any concerns you might have, go to the website, moveabroadandthrive.com. Click the consultation link at the top. And as always, if you find this content helpful, if it's useful to you, if it's making a difference, please consider making a donation. CashApp information is on the screen. $CartessRoss. Zelle, my email address, cartess@cartessross.com. Also email me your questions, cartess@cartessross.com. Share this video, post it on your Facebook. Let's get the word out that there is a quality life to be had outside the United States if you're willing to just relocate to a place that suits your needs. So I hope you found this helpful. Thank you for watching. I'm CartessRoss. We'll move abroad and thrive.